see you've actually returned. You're a lot braver than I thought. Well, if my last set of terrifying tales weren't good enough to scare you away, then maybe these stories will. They're all about schools. Gee, when I was in school, the only thing that filled my heart with terror was homework. Our first stop in this scary scholastic tour is Hong Kong. We call this one an Asian horror story, Kong Tat Tak School.
In the quiet village of Pingshan, nestled in the Yuen Long district of Hong Kong, lies the abandoned Tat Tak School. The school, now a crumbling relic of the past, is shrouded in eerie legends and ghostly tales. During the Japanese invasion of Hong Kong in 1941, many Pingshan villagers were brutally unalived, their bodies hastily buried on the land where the school now stands. Among the most infamous stories is that of the headmistress, who, clad in a red dress, tragically ended her life in one of the bathroom stalls. Her restless spirit is said to haunt the school, forever bound to the place of her demise. One chilly evening, a group of secondary students, Jason, Sam, Lucas, Natalie, Michelle, and Nicole, decided to explore the haunted grounds of Tat Tak School. Driven by curiosity and a desire to uncover the truth behind the ghostly tales, they ventured into the decaying building. The group split into two teams to cover more ground. Jason, Sam, and Lucas formed one team, while Natalie, Michelle, and Nicole made up the other. As they navigated the dark, narrow hallways, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. The first team, led by Jason, headed towards the classrooms. They found old, dusty desks and broken chalkboards, remnants of a time when the school was filled with the laughter and chatter of children. Suddenly, a chilling breeze swept through the room, and the faint sound of a woman sobbing echoed in the distance. The boys exchanged nervous glances but pressed on, determined to find the source of the haunting. Meanwhile, the second team, led by Natalie, made their way to the bathrooms. The flickering flashlight beams revealed cracked tiles and rusted fixtures. As they approached the last stall, a sense of dread washed over them. Michelle hesitated, but Nicole urged her forward. With trembling hands, Natalie pushed open the stall door. There, hanging from the ceiling, was a tattered red dress swaying gently, as if moved by an unseen force. A sudden, blood-curdling scream pierced the silence, and the girls turned to see a ghostly figure in a red dress standing behind them. Her eyes were hollow, and her face twisted in anguish. The headmistress's spirit had found them. Paralyzed with fear, the girls watched as the apparition slowly raised a hand, pointing towards the door. "Leave this place," she whispered, her voice echoing through the empty halls. The two teams reunited at the entrance, their faces pale and hearts pounding. They shared their experiences, realizing that the ghost of the headmistress was indeed real. As they hurried away from the school, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The legend of Tat Tak School had come to life, and the students knew they would never forget the night they encountered the red-dressed ghost.
Well, at least the headmistress picked the perfect place to scare the crap out of them. Anyway, on to the next one. This story takes us all the way to Spain, where a college is haunted by a nun. It's called My Faculty Has a Ghost.
The building was built in 1407, and throughout history was many things. In its early years was located in this place a convent of Dominican friars under the patronage of St. Peter Martyr. Little by little, the congregation became the organ in charge of the trial of the causes, that is to say, the Spanish Inquisition. History affirms that in this convent the inquisitors tortured and executed heretics and those accused of insults against the faith. During this period, the peak of the convent's existence, more than 60 friars, many of them famous members of the Holy Office, lived within its walls. After the dissolution of the Inquisition, the building passed from one hand to another and was used for multiple purposes: military barracks, Provincial Monuments Commission. On May 27, 1993, after a thorough remodeling, the building was inaugurated as the headquarters of the government delegation and the state administration. But during the inaugural ceremony, the Ministry of the Interior was asked to cede the building for educational use, a purpose it still fulfills today. Since the cloister was occupied by hundreds of professors, students, and employees of the university, multiple rumors affirm that within those ancient walls, some things happen that lack logical explanation. The testimonies come from students, janitors, security employees, university staff, or simple visitors. One of the most repeated experiences refers to the vision of a blurred figure, which some describe as a faint white smoke, which is usually seen in some places of the old convent, mainly in some areas such as the cloister, the library, the church, or the upper stalls. Witnesses state that this white smoke moves as if it were floating, and quite quickly, so that it is never seen for a period of more than 3 or 4 seconds. Some witnesses even claim to have seen this phenomenon more clearly, being able to distinguish a female figure dressed in a kind of white habit, as if it were a nun. This version is quite widespread among the cleaning staff, who even, perhaps to overcome the fear that could cause, refer to this figure as Encarna. And the fact is that, with all the naturalness in the world, when the cleaners go into any of the rooms where this vision usually appears, they do it with the warning, "Encarna, don't scare me, I'm coming in." And they say goodbye in the same way they entered. This is very curious, since in the history of San Pedro Martyr, the presence of any woman does not stand out, since it always lodged religious of the masculine sex. Even so, almost all the burials there are of Dominican religious, with the exception of 2 burials of women brought here during its use as a provincial pantheon. The nun's ghost is said to manifest itself in various ways, from apparitions to moving elevators in the middle of the night, or disorganizing classroom furniture after the cleaners have finished their work in the classrooms. This is why many of the university's night employees, cleaning staff, and security guards have resigned since the opening of the college. Professors rarely mention the subject, but students who graduated in the first graduating classes have no problem explaining their experiences. Most agree that Encarna's appearances occurred when, during exam periods, the faculty opened its doors so that students could study at night, the so-called night library. In the past, the library was not left open, but some classrooms in the main courtyard were made available for students to study there. That is why when the students went to the bathroom or to the vending machine to get a coffee, it was common for them to go in groups, due to the generalized fear of the whole issue of the nun had caused. Normally, it was the students who wandered alone in the courtyard or the corridors who suffered the apparitions of Encarna. As a result of the uproar caused by the rumors, the school administration decided to finally enable the faculty library for night study sessions, closing the courtyard of San Pedro. In my case, I have never experienced any of these apparitions. But what I can say is that the vibe given by some corners of the faculty makes my hair stand on end. There are bodies buried and walled up in classrooms, hallways, and courtyards, so the spiritual charge of the place is quite high. In fact, when I joined a faculty club as a freshman, we would try to leave the building before the sun went down because some of my classmates experienced unexplained events and were very afraid.
Wow, I'd be pretty damn surprised if a place like that wasn't haunted. Next, we have one from a woman who is having a problem with a ghost that just won't leave her the hell alone. It's entitled, "The Ghost That Followed Me."
I have many stories of ghost experiences, but one college story that spanned over 2 years. I was on FaceTime with my now former roommate once while we were all home for the holidays. They said they heard something weird in their attic and decided to investigate despite me, who has always lived in a haunted house, advising them not to. They did anyway. They then began texting me all the time complaining about seeing and hearing things. I told them to tell it to go away. They didn't and named the entity. 2 days later, we were back in our apartment. My partner, who lived with us, began complaining about hearing my voice or my roommate's voice while he showered. I began to hear it too, but with my roommate's voice only. Late at night, I would hear my roommate's closet door open and slam shut, hear their laughter, until I texted them asking them to politely quiet down, as I had a class the next day. They sent me a Snapchat of them at work and asked me in complete confusion what I was talking about. We didn't have neighbors since the rooms next to us had been vacant, and the new tenants weren't moving in for another few weeks on either side. So I got up and went into my roommate's room. Their closet door was wide open, but otherwise everything looked normal. COVID hit and my roommate couldn't justify staying in the apartment when the lease came to an end, especially since the rest of the school was closed for the foreseeable future. They moved out while my partner and I apartment hunted because we didn't want to go back to living with our parents. We found a place and quickly moved in, smaller than our last place. I began to have sleep paralysis. I heard my former roommate's voice and my partner's voice whenever I showered. My partner mentioned the same thing. We had the same encounters, but with each other's voices. We would hear the locked bathroom door open and shut and the call of our names. We would always respond and then peek out the shower curtain to see the door is still closed and locked. Many sleepless nights together there, and other reasons caused us to move out again. Our lease was broken early on, fault of the apartment building, declining to tell us they were allowing a rooftop bar to share a wall with us, and said, "We can give you a coupon to the bar," which, in our lease, was a break of trust on their end, legally allowing us to move out without penalty. My partner's parents allowed us to stay in their lake house while we searched for a new place, since it was close to where I worked and close enough to the school. But again, we had the same problems of hearing voices when alone. I remember our bedroom door was closed, and I awoke to a loud banging and someone yelling at us to wake up. I thought it might have been my partner's mother, since the voices sounded like a muffled version of hers. I woke up and my partner had told me no one was there, and that before closing the door, after I had gone to bed, they saw a figure run from their sister's room and into their parents' room, completely freaking us out. Our final move for college was a week later, and we didn't have any problems with that entity again. That had to have been the most malicious feeling one I've ever experienced. Like I said, I have tons of ghost stories, but none have ever copied voices of those I know and love before.
Geez, what is it with some ghosts and bugging people in the shower? Is nothing sacred? Our next one is from an OP that has a truly terrifying experience in the bathroom at her school. We call this one the Haunted Elementary School Bathroom.
For some reason, this has been on my mind lately, so I decided to share the story. I started going to a new school in the 2nd grade. The cafeteria was downstairs in the basement, and then there was a long, empty hallway that led to the 2 bathrooms. I remember the first time I went to the bathroom there. Nobody told me it was haunted. So on the first day of 2nd grade, I ventured down the hall to go to the bathroom. As I made my way towards it, I kept hearing this noise. When I approached the doorway, so much negative energy hit me, and I knew not to go in there. I ran back to the cafeteria, told some girls about it, and they told me it was haunted. We were all terrified of this bathroom. The boys said their bathroom was fine, but that the girls' bathroom down there also freaked them out. It got so bad we had to have the principal come talk to our class about it. Everyone knew it was haunted. Flash forward to 3rd grade. It was Halloween, and I was the first student in the classroom. Every Halloween we had a parade outside where we marched around in our costumes. I began putting my costume on over my clothes and noticed a piece of paper folded up in my desk. It caught my eye. I don't know how to describe it, but it was folded strangely. I picked it up, unfolded it, and in a faint handwriting was, "If you dare go to the bathrooms downstairs, I'll off you." I can't make this stuff up. I was the first student in the room. The previous day, I left school, in line with everybody else. Once more kids came into the classroom, I told my friends, and they were more scared than I was. They made me tell the teacher. You could tell she thought it was odd, but she crumpled up the paper and threw it away. And that's the last time I saw it. I went in the bathroom again, but only in large groups. We used to have a thing called field day, where we played outside all day at the end of the school year. One day on field day, me and about 10 other girls had to go to the bathroom, so we all teamed up and went to the one downstairs. I remember leaning up against the wall and feeling and hearing something, as if someone was banging on the wall with an axe. We all heard it, and it was uncomfortably loud. Also, I have to add that no one ever went in the last stall. But this day, a girl did. It had cobwebs all over it and everything. Then one night, I was at the school for a concert. This was towards the end of 5th grade, so I was brave enough to go there myself. I was kind of curious. I went down to the hall, and as usual, the noise could be heard a mile away. I went into the bathroom, but I just kind of stood around and didn't actually go in a stall or anything. Suddenly, I just got scared and ran towards the door. But I was surprised when I bumped into a rather strange lady with long gray hair, a scarf partially covering her head and face. I just brushed by her and ran. Also, the lights were turned off when I was in that bathroom. The energy there is just insane. You feel in danger. Girls would cry and sob because they didn't want to have to use that bathroom. The loud, overwhelming noise, the occasionally banging noises, the unused last stall that's door was always shut. The scratches on the mirror, the old poster that hung on the wall, it was just creepy. Maybe the note was a prank, but I do know that that bathroom is haunted.
You know what? I agree. That note could be a prank. And if it is, well, it's not a funny one at all. In fact, whoever perpetrated such a prank really deserves to be haunted. If need be, I volunteer my services. Next, we have one from a guy whose old house used to be a school, and life there was far from easy. It's called My Childhood Home Used to Be a School, and I'm pretty sure it traumatized me.
Now, I don't know a ton about the history of my childhood home, but I know that it was old as hell and one of the creepiest places I've ever lived in. It was a 4-story house. I know, fancy, right? With lots of dark spaces and long stairways. Basically, it was really big. There wasn't a moment in that house when I felt like I was truly alone, and there wasn't a hallway that felt truly empty. I was just barely out of toddlerhood when I started to develop severe anxiety. I was afraid to do anything alone. I was always checking behind me, sleeping with my head under the covers, seeing things, hearing things, you name it. I'm almost 100% sure that there was something paranormal making me feel that way. I wasn't the only one seeing and hearing things, though. My older brother shared a room with me, and he always slept on the top bunk. His bed was maybe a foot away from the ceiling, and the attic was right above us. He told me that some nights he'd hear adult footsteps right above his head, just circling the attic. But it gets weirder. He's told me that at one point he woke up next to a shadowy figure, just lying in bed with him. He claims the figure had 2 white specks for eyes, and that it wasn't acting malicious, just lying there silently. This might have been some kind of sleep paralysis hallucination, but considering the other events, I wouldn't be surprised if it was some kind of spirit. And now onto the worst one, the playroom. That room was the creepiest thing in the house, and I get shivers just thinking about it. It sat at the end of a long hallway on the top floor, just below the attic. My room was down the hall from it, and it was always pitch black. I remember staying up at night, staring at it, just in case something moved. I often couldn't take my eyes away in fear of something appearing if I did. Somehow, every time I looked at that doorway, the door was wide open. And the door wasn't weak, either. It worked perfectly fine and wouldn't open unless you turned the knob. I'd ask my dad to close it before I went to bed, and it would stay closed for a bit until it just slid open again. I'm not a door specialist, but it was just arguably creepy. But wait, there's more. Now that we're older and out of that house, me and my brother found out that we shared a terrifying experience. We both saw something incredibly creepy in the same place. I remember it vaguely. It was a small, neutral, glowing white face in the playroom. It looked a bit like a little kid, from my memory. It had no body, just a pure white face in the dark. It was around my height, and its eyes were kind of just not there. I don't remember much, but I remember it was the single most terrifying thing I'd been through. I don't know if I hallucinated or what, but I know it felt incredibly real at the time. Maybe it was a dream or something, because all I remember is seeing that face, getting scared, and running back to my bed. I don't think I screamed, but I seriously don't remember. I kind of love-hate thinking about it because it just makes my hair stand on edge. Thanks to that house, I have now been diagnosed with anxiety. I am taking medication for it, and I'm all right. But I thought it was worth noting. I could go on, but I can't really think of anything else right now. Maybe my next post should be about the attic or basement. Nothing really happened there, but they freaked me out for sure.
Well, it sounds like to me that the school might be gone, but some of the students remained behind. Well, look at the time. It looks like we have just enough time for one more story before bedtime. For this one, we will be whisked away to a school in the Philippines. We call it the Unexplained School Ghost.
When I was around 8 years old, I went to a large private school that comprised of kindergarten all the way up to college. It's called Our Lady of Perpetual Succor College in Marikina, Philippines, or OLOPSC for short. In the part of the building I was studying at, there were 2 washrooms, an upstairs and downstairs. Students were allowed to go to either, but were recommended to go to the one closest to their classroom. The closest bathroom to me was the lower level, and I hated going because the room depended on natural light from the windows for lighting. It was dim at best, and it really just had a creepy vibe. Not exactly sure when it started, but every time I'd go to take a leak, I would feel someone watching over my back. I would turn around and I would not see anything unusual, but the sensation was there. After about a couple of weeks, the encounters escalated to a point that I could finally see who or what was looking at me in my peripherals. It was a young boy about 5 years old, wearing a white shirt, blue shorts, blank eyes and facial expression, dark lips and dark hair. His skin was a lifeless gray color. He would stare at me without breaking contact. I remember what he looked like very, very vividly. However, when I would turn to face him, he would be gone. This would happen every time I went to the washroom, and I got so scared that I decided I would use the second-floor washroom from then on. One day, I really had to go pee, but I wasn't able to make it to the second-floor washroom. I wet my pants embarrassingly, and I was sent home for the day. I told my parents I just couldn't hold it. It was a much easier excuse than having to tell them a little boy is watching me pee in the first-floor washroom. My older brother, 10 years old at the time, who went to the same school, asked me why I opted to go to the second-floor bathroom instead of the one closest to my classroom. This time, I decided to tell my brother the real reason, expecting him to tell me it's all in my head or it's just my imagination. But boy, was I wrong. When I told him, it was because every time I went to the first-floor washroom, I felt like someone was watching me. My brother replied with, "Is it a boy?" and proceeds to describe exactly how the boy looks, down to the way it stared at him. I was completely freaked out when he shared his identical experiences with the ghost. I'm 19 now, and to this day I have absolutely no explanation for all this. Still have vivid memories of the boy's image, and I have never felt the same eerie feeling from being stared at by that boy. If anyone has had similar experiences, please share. Thank you.
You know what? I bet I know why he's in there and just stares at you. It's out of jealousy. Just hear me out. You can take a nice, luxurious, rewarding pee, right? Well, he can't. He's probably sitting back going, "Oh God, do I ever miss that?" Well, these stories just goes to show you that just because school is out doesn't mean the ghosts are. And that, in itself, can be pretty scary. But do you know what is not scary? Hitting like, subscribe, and sharing this video. It'll really help us keep the ghosts at bay. However, if you prefer podcast, then you're in luck, because we also release our videos in podcast form on Spotify. And of course, if any of you have a story to share, then by all means, drop me a line in the comments. But I do want to thank you for stopping by, and I hope the stories we told won't be giving you too many bad dreams. But if they do, then maybe you shouldn't run from them. After all, sometimes it's better to embrace your nightmares.